evening, or good morning, depending on when you're watching this. My name is John Salmon, and I and Mark Brandenburg, who you can't see because he is off camera, but he is the one who is making all this happen, are inviting you to another installment of our project, the Reflections Project, a Cuong Nhu History. Tonight we're talking with Ricki and John Kay from Washington State, and we're going to spend some time talking about the old days, when O-sensei was still here, when he was sharing and teaching and leading, and I know John was involved then and Ricki was involved then, so we're going to try to get some of the old stories to add to our archive library of Cuong Nhu when it started here in the United States. Tonight we're joined by Ricki Kay, who is a 7th degree Shichidan. She's the oldest of a twin and grew up poor. She and I actually went to the same junior high school, and she had my mother-in-law as her math teacher. I had my mother-in-law as my math teacher too. She went to Miami-Dade before she even graduated high school, Miami-Dade Community College, and then went on to the University of Florida where she graduated. Her father passed away while she was in school, and she held down 3 jobs in order to complete her education. She first saw Cuong Nhu in 1973, watched a black belt testing, and was so impressed that she started in January of 1974 and received her black belt in 1978. She opened a school in 1980 through 1984, then children came along. The Kays have 3 children, Sarah, Tony, and Maddie. And she reopened school in 1990, and in 1995, the 2 of you started the Fairwood School. John was born in a beautiful brick house in Chicago, grew up where milk bottle caps popped from it being too cold. He then moved to Miami where it wasn't cold. Had their family name changed from Kozubowski to Kay, and started in elementary school in Miami, and he and I graduated from the same high school, North Miami High. We're both pioneers from, he was a couple of years ahead of me. Went to the University of Florida. Well, first he was in the Air Force. Went to the University of Florida, started with O-sensei, received black belt number 6. Yes, correct, black belt number 6. He, from 1974 to 1980, he owned one of the first commercial schools in Gainesville, the Dragon Gate School with John Benson. They got together, they got married, they moved to Washington, and the rest is history you're going to hear for the next 40, 45 minutes. How many times have you climbed Mount Rainier, John?
I've made 5 attempts.
Okay.
Yeah. Only made the summit once.
Well, you know what? That's okay. That's really okay. I once made it to the 6th floor of a building, and I thought that was exciting. So, let me start with you, John. What was your first contact with Cuong Nhu? What attracted you? What made you stay?
The first contact with Cuong Nhu was the winter of 1971. Sometime in December, there was December or January, there was a class that was just getting out, and outside, downstairs, there were the exit doors of the gym, and Bobby Ng, one of the students, was outside with someone else, and my girlfriend and I, we started talking to him for a few minutes. No, it was Donna Goldstein, who got a brown belt in Cuong Nhu eventually. And he just seemed like a really nice guy. Bobby always smiled.
Okay.
If you knew Bobby, he was a pleasant person. Anyway, got me interested, and then the next quarter, 1972, Donna said, "I want to start karate, so would you go with me to class?" So I used to
being a good boyfriend.
Being a good boyfriend, I didn't want to do it. What I would do is I would go have a quart of beer in the late afternoon, and I used to have a full beard, and I used to go to class with beer on my breath. And there's many stories about Sensei Dong asking Lop and the other guys, who's bearded guy with the beer on his breath, and that was me. So anyway, I started that way.
And that was at University of Florida.
University of Florida, 1972, and I took my first green stripe test. I forget which park it was. I wasn't going to go to the first green stripe test. I was going to stay home because I was hungover, because I got drunk the night before. But for some reason, I did.
And you passed it, I presume?
I passed it. I made 2 mistakes in the first form. And I went home inspired, and I wrote an essay for a writing class about how to cure hangover and about Cuong Nhu Karate Association.
That's what it was called.
Back then it was a karate association, yeah. And something hit me about all these people wearing these gis and these kind of mystical things, and the Vietnam War was still going on, so on the campus covered with demonstrations and stuff, here was a Vietnamese guy who was very inspiring, and I was a person who lacked all inspiration.
And his English wasn't very good, I've had others tell me.
I had no problem with his English. You know? I mean, it was broken English. But, you know, I grew up in Chicago when I was little with people who spoke Polish and German or whatever. So, yeah.
How did you get involved, Ricki? Obviously, you were not the girlfriend that was going with John.
My father died in August of 1973, and being somebody who was young at the time, and I was looking for something. I was lost. I was at college and needed something to hold me together. And I went and watched a test. And I was so struck by Grandmaster Dong. I was struck by the fact that there was hundreds of people out on this lawn, and they were all doing the same thing, and they were being controlled by a little man who was 5'6".
With a whistle?
With a whistle.
Really loud whistle.
A really loud whistle.
He was extremely respectful. He knew people's first names. He walked amongst everybody, so he didn't put himself up like he was like a king or something. And he was always smiling and happy. And watching it, I could see that people of all sizes, all ages, anything could do this. I had been a swimmer for 10 years, so I was not against discipline. It was very comfortable to me. So I really wanted to try it. So by that January of '74, I started in a class.
Okay, great.
I watched a boyfriend of mine take his test, and that wasn't him.
That wasn't him. Okay, well, obviously, somehow the two of you got together.
That's another story.
That's another story. Tell me about that individual, person, family, whatever, that had the greatest impact on you as a martial artist or as an individual. And John, I'm going to tell you right now, you were that person for John Hoover in his video that had the most impact upon him.
Wow.
Am I correct, Mark, in the background?
That's correct.
Mark's nodding his head. You can't see him.
Okay, so who is the one person?
One person.
Well,
In your martial art, we know it's Ricki, but who was the one person other than Ricki and your children that had the most impact as a martial artist?
the greatest impact as a martial artist is Dong.
And why?
Because you know, my sense of my self-worth when I first began was like this, you know, and he had read Dong had read Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I don't know if you've read that book, but
I have.
it's
As a kid. Don't ask me to remember it.
It's about the character, the seagull, who convinces himself that he can fly 200 miles an hour or whatever if he just believes in it and he just tries. And Dong really believed that. He believed your will. If there was a will to do something, you could do it. You could overcome all your past things, limitations, self-imposed or whatever, and become whatever you wanted to be. Okay, and So for example, in '73, I was still a brown belt. I got my degree in political science and got a C average. But in 1980, when I got my degree in electrical engineering, after my black belt, I graduated with honors because I believed I could.
Interesting. And the discipline of the martial arts helps you in so many different things.
Yeah, but the discipline was a compassionate discipline. It was a person who was a real man, was not a god, who could relate to you, who didn't just ask you superficial questions. He could read your face. Don was one of those people who could read your face and see if you were happy, sad, good person, bad. I mean, he could really, it's kind of a, yeah. So,
Not John, not your children, not your father.
My mother.
Most influence in martial arts?
She knew I was taking the martial arts.
Interesting.
And she, for my entire life, my mother always told me I could do anything I wanted to do. She never put limits, because she only had 2 girls.
You were twins?
Twins. And she always told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. I graduated high school with a 4.0. I graduated college with a 3.95. But they weren't really challenges. So my mother transferred into Master Dong. He was always very compassionate. I failed my first black belt test that my mother watched. And then she died a couple months later, so she never got to see me pass my test. But Master Dong knew about my mother's passing. And he came up to me and was very personal about it and said, now you can move on.
Tell me a memory that stands out about O-Sensei or the No family, because I know you had some contact with the No family as well as
sure.
Yeah.
just with O-Sensei. And you
want
were
O-Sensei or the No
both
family?
you were both active when he left. You were a black belt before he left to go back to Vietnam.
3 years before.
And then you lived through the time when he was gone, when people thought he was no longer alive. Then we found out he was alive. Then he came back on homecoming day in 1977 in Gainesville. So what, that must have been some emotional roller coaster during that period.
Yeah,
I understand there was a memorial for him.
Yeah, the memorial, the funny thing about memorials, you go through grieving, you have the picture of the person, all the people who knew Dong was there, in tears, crying, and then you get over it, time goes by, and that was 1975.
Well, let me interrupt you. When he came to start teaching at the University of Florida, his family was still in Vietnam.
Right. Yeah.
You didn't meet his family till he returned
Right.
after
But
his
every picnic, all he talked about was his family. All he talked about was the most important people in the world is your family. If you're not taking care of your family, if you're not being part of your family, you're not being true to yourself.
And he was here for how many years? 3? Till he got his degree?
Well, I was kind of relating something, and then you kind of interrupted me.
I'm
So anyway, so he left in '74. Da Nang fell in March '75, and so that was when we thought he was dead. In '76, we found out he was alive. In '77, he returned. That's what happened. Okay. Anyway.
And they did a memorial.
So the funny thing about this memorial is that when he reappeared, the dead person reappeared. It's a very weird sensation. Yeah, I mean you've got this joy and all this, but there's this emotional thing. You're dead. I grieved you. I mean that's the way that I felt. So seeing someone who had passed reappear was like the ghost who walked. It was yeah.
Your feelings, Ricki, same? Were you involved then to the same level that John was?
I didn't know Master Dong as closely as he did because John had gotten his black belt from him and trained with him for considerably years longer. I only knew him for a couple of years. So when they declared him dead and had a memorial, it was like being on the outside looking in. But then when he came back, that was a totally different story.
And that's when you met the family.
Yeah, that's when I met the family.
Tell me about the family the first time you met them.
I was
Quinn and
part
On and Bao and
I was part of the
two.
group that put the house together. I made the curtains and the bedspreads for the house. And we stocked the refrigerator with food and actually Coca-Cola. When the
Why
kid,
am I not surprised?
they wanted Coca-Cola. When they got off the plane, I was amazed at how small and tiny everybody was. Even Chow. She was a tiny, tiny lady. And they huddled close to each other. You could tell that they were scared to death. This was such a new environment for them. And I couldn't imagine, but they had each other. They were all together. I remember when we took them to the house, the first thing they did was open the refrigerator. And the first thing they said was, Coca-Cola! Coca-Cola! We have Coca-Cola! And
Interesting.
it was a tiny house, though. I mean, we made an extra bedroom for them out of one of the screened-in patios.
Interesting. Okay, so tell me about each of your black belt tests. Ladies first. Because we all see black belt tests now, and everybody says
When I
they
passed
weren't
them-
like that in the old days.
She took
I took
two tests.
The first test I took by myself.
Mhm.
And I didn't break my boards. I actually took 2.5. I took a black belt test at Dragon Gate Dojo 3 weeks before my black belt test at the center,
Okay, the center, the old bowling alley.
the old bowling alley center. And I did really good at Dragon Gate and thought I was ready. And by mistake, I let myself drop in my intensity of it. And so I didn't break my boards, and I had to continue with 3 hours of kick combinations, katas, rolls on the floor, self-defense,
On the wood floor.
on the wood floor.
Right.
Back
No
then,
mats back
no, well, they had one set of mats over there. Back then, your self-defense was, somebody was assigned to grab you, and you weren't told how they were gonna grab you. You were told you will get out of it, and you will get them on the ground by any means possible. And I had this little woman named Melinda Chansey. She was a 3rd-degree black belt, and she was tough as nails. And she used to be a massage therapist, so she had thick wrists. And she grabbed me, and at the time, the pressing arm wasn't going to work, Kodigation, not that I was doing it correctly. So all I can remember was I smashed her forearm and smashed her in the face and put her on the ground. And they said, that was very good. I'm thinking, I just hit an instructor, and they told me I did a good job.
there.
And then I sat there, and this was after 3 hours, and they were collaborating on the results, and a couple of my friends came up and said, wow, you did fantastic, you sparred great, you did this. I said, but I failed. I said, how could you fail? I said, I didn't break my boards. I said, it's a black and white scenario.
Yes.
And then I took 6 months off and went hiking and backpacking and reestablished things, and I tested for the 2nd time and later that year, the following year actually. And that was with 8 people. And during the test, Master Dong wanted us to do something exciting. So he put together this high jump with bricks, and he laid a kicking bag over it. And he put somebody behind it with some boards. He says, each one of you is going to jump over this with a flying side kick and break the board. And we're standing there next to each other going, did you ever do this before? No. Did you ever do this before? No. Me neither. I'm going to break that board if it's the last thing I do. And I did. I broke the board. And then I passed my test.
John, you said you were black belt number 6.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell me about that black belt testing experience.
Yeah, the early black belt tests were quite simple. In my test, I think it was February '74, February or March, and the week before the picnic, the quarterly picnic, I sparred. I had 3 sparring matches one night, and that was the Sunday of the picnic, we had testing. Her class was taking the first green stripe test. I didn't know her then. I rode Donna Goldstein's bicycle, the girl's bicycle with a basket with my 12 boards, barefoot from the house I was living with, which was with Harris Freeman, a guy who let me stay at his house for free because I had no money, I had no job, all I did was karate. I rode to the park. I helped give the test with Don and the other brown belts, and the 5 other black belts. And after that, I said, okay, we did the swearing-in ceremony, and then we're going to have the black belt test. So the black belt test was, okay, break your boards. And I set up my boards, and I did left roundhouse, right side kick, tried 3 times, finally got it the 3rd time, and the 6th strike was the palm heel. So I got my boards out of the way, and my katas I did was Kankusho and Kankudai, and that was my test.
Did all of you hear that Master John Kay took 3 times to break his boards at his test? I just want everybody to know.
On the side kick.
On site.
But I broke left roundhouse and right roundhouse with the ball of my foot on one.
So during that picnic, that was the first time I saw him. I watched him do his katas and break his boards, and he had long hair, much longer than mine, and he had a beard. I'm like, wow, look at that old man. He was 27, I was 20. I said, if he could do it, I could do it. I said, he's amazing. I said, I want to train with him. And that's when I switched to Dragon Gate Dojo.
And he still is amazing, and so are you.
Yes, he still is amazing.
We are sitting here now, folks, at Emory University in Atlanta at just a really nice facility, beautiful cafeteria, beautiful place to work out. Tell us about some early training camps.
Yeah. Okay, the first training camp, which I guess was 78, I refer to that one as the gulag. It was, everything about it was horrible. There were mosquitoes, the food was terrible. It was, the sleeping arrangements for the men was an open barracks with bare light bulbs, lots of noise. I taught self-defense. I was one of the classes. Forget what the other classes were. I remember the self-defense because I had sprained my wrist, my thumb, the week before, so I had a sore wrist. Yeah, there were stickers. I mean, it was all bad.
It wasn't where we are today.
I didn't go to another training camp until '91. I skipped 13 years worth.
There was the women's quarters, the bunk beds had these metal slats in them, and we were told that each person had to bring a sheet and a pillow. So we brought our own sheet and pillow, and we slept in these metal slats. And the only windows were these slatted metal windows, and the doors were open, so there was no real doors. It was like concrete, and there was no air conditioning. The lights just went off, and all night long you heard
Lots of mosquitoes.
oh, the mosquitoes. The bathrooms and showers was one large rectangle room with shower stalls on the wall, and so it was like communal showers. Okay, so we quickly got over that. The first morning, we did katas by the lake in the sand with the stickers and everything, and everybody's like looking left and right because we're getting up to P92. We know we're going to be kicking. Dirt starts flying, you know. Okay, we do all 12 katas, and we sit down and we go to meditate. And we're sitting in meditation, and the lake is gorgeous, and it's like just about sunrise, and suddenly you hear somebody go, and it broke the entire piece, and people just started laughing because we realized somebody had fallen asleep. And that was for brown belts and above. Those are the only people who were allowed to attend training camp. You were asked. And Mary Davis was president of the association then. She saved us because Sunday morning the food was not included. So she brought croissants and fresh fruit. And it was the only decent food from the whole weekend. If she hadn't thought about doing that, we probably would have started.
Probably a good segue. Funniest Cuong Nhu story. And you can't use Mary Davis bringing something. I want to hear about the apples.
Yeah, this is a good story.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah, so there was a Florida-Georgia rivalry, is one of the biggest rivalries, and so
Still is.
yeah, and there was a Florida-Georgia basketball game, and they asked if the Cuong Nhu Club, I guess what eventually became the Cypress Club, would put a karate demonstration on at halftime. And so we were the senior students, and we said, okay, yeah, sure, how many people do you expect? And they said, about 6,000. So anyway, we put together a demonstration. We had some people doing flying kicks, and I did Conco Die by myself in the center of the thing in front of 6,000 people. And there was a little self-defense demo, and the final thing was Master Dong, who had an apple stuck on a dagger in front of him and an apple stuck on a dagger to the side. And he measured where his punch was and where his backhand was, and then they blindfolded him. And then he went, this was the final finale, the grand finale. So then with his eyes covered, he went boom, boom, and then he bowed like this, and we all bowed. So instead of he had his hands like this, and we bowed, and we all ran off, and he said, which way is the dispensary? And I said, why? And he said, I've cut my hand. But he was so cool about it. He just went bam, bam, and covered it like that and ran out like that.
Your turn.
We used to have to train on the Florida Gator football field, which at the time was AstroTurf. AstroTurf gets very hot. So we quickly discovered that the white chalk lines do not get hot. So we developed perfect 1-yard stances so that we could stay from chalk line to chalk line. That's how we got really good stances.
That's true.
It is.
I understand there was a time when women weren't allowed to spar men, Ricki.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to spar men. When Master Dom left, things changed a little bit, and we were allowed to spar men. And then when Master Dom came back, he didn't like that idea. So at the very next training camp, we had the women on one side, the men on the other, and we were allowed to hand select who we were going to spar to demonstrate to him that we could have self-control, that we could not get killed, that we could actually hold our own. So each of us had to do that. And I remember I had just taken a class on the rear leg spinning foot sweep from John Burns. So I was all ready to try that, and I did it, and it worked against Frank Van Essen. I didn't score a point, but I did the foot sweep effectively. I was like thrilled, like, oh, it worked, I did it. And so we had to convince him. So after that, he let us spar on tests.
There are many people watching this who never knew O-Sensei. But they know Quinn and Bao and An and Tu. You were there when they were children. Anything you remember about that?
You do.
Yeah, I remember working on the big hanging target in the corner of the headquarters, and I was doing some bag work, and little Quinn was there, and he was playing like hide and seek behind the target, watching me, and he said, "You're old, but you're fast." So I never forgot that.
They spent a lot of time at the office at the Cuong Nhu Center, but they didn't talk to very many people. It's like they were afraid.
They do now.
Yes, they talked to one another.
Quinn always to me was a spitting image of his father in the way he looks,
No question.
and in his sense of humor. Some of the jokes some of the things that Sensei Dong told me that I thought were jokes or funny are very similar to some of the funny things that.
I only met O-Sensei 3 times before I moved out of Gainesville in 1978. and did not get re-engaged in the style till 2000. And then I met Quinn, and I thought I was seeing his dad.
Yeah.
The first time I met him.
I had them over for lunch and for dinner a couple times because I understood the fact that, here was this family now, and this family had to try to meet people.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a relationship with Chow that was kind of unique and special because she spoke French, and I was teaching French at a private high school at the time. So she and I used to get together every Friday, and she would help me make up my French lessons for the week. So I asked her to come over for lunch and with the kids and to come over, and I looked up all of the cultural things about Vietnamese. And one of the things was, you're supposed to have everything ready when they get there. You're supposed to be ready to entertain them. You're not supposed to let them in the kitchen. So what happens is she shows up 30 minutes early. The first thing she does is come into the kitchen, and she wants to talk to me, and she wants to help. And I'm thinking, she's not supposed to do this. I'm not supposed to let her do this. I'm supposed to keep her in the family room or someplace else. But at the same time, the kids are like running around the house, and I have no idea what to do with 3 kids running around my house.
And you didn't have your 3 then?
Oh no, I was like 25 years old.
Oh, just
I
checking.
didn't have a clue about what to do with kids. And all I keep
You did
trying-
okay with the 3 you had.
Oh, I did.
Even though you totally creeped everybody out when you had your son come on to you during your master's demo.
It was good though, wasn't it?
That was wonderful, but just creepy.
But I took him down to the floor too,
Several times.
several times.
Several times.
So that was kind of weird for me because it was like kids running around my house, and I had read that culturally I wasn't supposed to have this Vietnamese woman come into my kitchen, and then she wants to come into the kitchen and she wants to talk, and I'm like, okay, she's behaving more like an American, but I thought she was Vietnamese, so it was kind of like.
Okay. We've talked about the 70s. It's now 2013. Why have you stayed involved? That's a long time. You're now 7th degree, each of you. It can't be the sweating and the punching and the kicking.
For me, that inspiration that I was given, when I could touch someone else and get someone else through depression, one of my students, or someone that doesn't think much of themselves or is struggling for whatever reason, I have this burning inside of me that wants to keep being the sensei that does that cares about that person. And it has nothing to do with the punches or kicks at all.
Ricki, you've given more of yourself probably than most as you sit there looking beautiful with 2 titanium hips.
Thank you.
Why have you stayed?
There's 2 reasons why. I started teaching the martial arts several years ago, and my children got involved. And we have a commercial school. And at one point, we had to renew the lease, and my son said, we talked to the kids, should we continue doing this? And my son said, well, what else would I do after school? And I have a master's degree in psychology, and I taught psychology. But I use more of my psychology in every day that I do in the martial arts. And I feel that I have a gift and a knack with children. So all the children that come into my dojo, I feel that they've come in for a reason because they need something. And what they need is the consistency and the love of somebody who's going to accept them, and yet at the same time help them push and reach, because I don't think that's part of our society anymore. So in the dojo, they get a family and they get a consistency of somebody who accepts them but wants to keep them pushing and going for goals and pushing and reaching for more, because that's what my mother gave me. And so I feel that that's what the dojo does. So no matter how many times we have discrepancies over testing or discrepancies over techniques, I do it because of what Master John gave us a long time ago, and that's the continuation of the style.
I don't know how to follow those two comments with a question. Other than somebody asked me to ask you, John, do you really do 2,000 push-ups a day?
I did for a couple of years, do 2,000 a day, yeah.
How long did that take?
A long time. You know how there's a little story about that. When Dawn was gone the first time, we were, what was going to be the stamina requirement? So we had a stamina committee.
Thank you for it not still being 2,000 push-ups.
So I said, well, let's make it 20 on your left fist, one arm, and 20 on your right, 30 on your wrist, and 30 on your fingertips. And they said, that's too hard. No one can do that. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do it 9 times a day, 7 days a week for a year. If I can do that, make that the requirement. So they did. And I did more, and I kept doing more until I was doing a couple thousand. Now I only do a couple hundred.
I want to thank you both. One of the things about Cuong Nhu that has always impressed me is it is a family. It's not a martial arts style led by a hierarchical level of great masters. You two are great masters, but I think you're also part of our family, so I want to thank you.
Thank you.